What's up guys, Kudou here, and now that we've gotten both the set and the extra booster reviews out of the way, we're going to get to our first deck profile. Today's deck profile is going to be a little bit boring because it's meant to be an actual competitive version of the deck, but don't be too disappointed because I have put a couple of Kudou twists on it. So let's not waste any time. Deck profile up. As always, if you're just here to net deck the deck list, then here it is. Please enjoy. All I ask is that you leave me a like on your way out. For the rest of us, this is a very change-centered build. I really wanted to build a deck around how good the changes in Shana are, so I decided to build something that really brings that to light, but also has a lot of really great level 1 control. The level 2 in the deck isn't extremely powerful, but the deck so consistently changes into level 3 that it's normally not that big of a deal. The deck also has some really great toolbox options in the form of lots of cards that give bonus power, so hypothetically the deck should be able to apply consistent pressure through the use of change and small power boosts. Let's take a closer look, shall we? Level 0 is not a very good level for this build, but I had to sacrifice a lot of the power to keep up color consistency. I need blue for a level 1 play, so we're running 7 blues, and then I'm running yellow because there's a good level 1 and level 2 Shana that I need to use. Unfortunately, all of the great changers in Shana are yellow cards that change into red cards, so we needed a little bit of yellow here to keep up colors. Top tier Marjorie is the only red we're running here at level 0. Her effect just makes her too good not to run. You drop her, and something is getting a plus 1500 boost. The fact that this effect doesn't cost any stock is crazy, and the fact that you can drop this at level 3 just for some damage fodder and give something else a plus 1500 boost is very, very relevant. Its other effect is too situational to rely on. I guess you could use it if you have the extra 1 stock lying around to make absolutely sure the top card of their deck isn't a climax, but most of the time this is just a walking, talking 1500 power boost that also swings in for damage. Growing up in this city, Shana is a bit of a controversial pick on my part. We need a yellow card to go here to give us more yellow consistency, and I like this yellow card personally. It's a back row that gives 500 to the 2 in front, and you can also rest it to give one of your characters another 500 on top of that. The 2 other assists we're using don't have any natural power boosts, so I like having this in the deck. Phyllis is our basic level 0 searcher. I shouldn't even have to explain why she's here. She searches a flame character, so she literally searches our entire deck, and obviously this is a change deck, so not only is it great to be able to consistently pull out certain characters, but it's also great that we can drop change targets into our discard pile. To be honest, I don't know if I'm super crazy about Priestess Heikate's spot here in the deck. Theoretically, I think she's a pretty good pick, but we'll have to do some more testing. At level 2, if I'm meeting her experience requirement, then every time I use a standby effect, I can give a character plus 1500 power, but only once per turn. And she has a standby effect that lets me pay 2 to draw a card. At level 2, getting to draw a card for my super encores and also getting 1500 power is just so good that I didn't want to pass it up. But there is a 4000 power blue card that I could put here, so we'll see how it goes. Level 1 is when things start to speed up a little bit. Yes, we're running Belgery. You guys knew I would. Belle Payole is just a great core to have in the deck. Not only does she give character discard encore, but she also has a cycle effect for 1 stock. Like I was saying before, effects that let you willingly discard cards from your hand work very well in a change deck because you can put change targets in the discard pile and then change into them. Admittedly, you're not going to use this effect too much, but if you end up with a handful of climaxes or if you end up in a spot where you need to change, then this could be good. Now on the Marjorie side of this is where you want your stock to be going. If you have one of these in the front row with a Payole and a Shana, then this is a 7500 base that can go up to 10,500 with 1 stock and resting one of your characters, and it's also got super encore. The real strategy of this deck is with this card, your opponent just doesn't get to have whatever their strongest character is. So if your opponent is using a deck that relies heavily on change or some kind of strategy that makes it so that a character is very, very powerful, this strategy completely negates it. You should pretty much always be using this card's effect on your turn at least once. You just pay 1, you give it plus 3000 power, and you pop whatever your opponent's strongest card is. No exceptions. The only time you would ever do this is if your opponent just doesn't have anything that would be worth it. Like, even if you don't really need the power boost, getting the power boost to negate whatever your opponent's, like, event or backup is very useful. Don't forget, backup events that give 3000 power do exist, so don't get cocky. Go ahead and just use this effect once every turn that you need to. Now, admittedly, this strategy is very costly. If you have to keep this effect up 4 or 5 turns in a row, you're probably going to be on the losing side of things in the late game. But it is very effective in keeping the field empty while you get your change off. Last up is Shana in swimsuits. Everything about this card is perfect for our strategy. We have a cost-heavy core going on. This is free. Belle Payol only gives 2 of your character's Super Encore. This card has built-in Super Encore. You don't have enough stock to change? Then just stay alive until next turn and change next turn. Really, the fact that this thing changes during the climax phase and that it has Super Encore is just insane to me. So as soon as you get this in your hand, you pay the 3, you change it, and if you don't, then it's a free attacker that'll change next turn. Level 2 is a bit of a transition level. It's definitely not the powerhouse that level 1 and level 3 are. We have a change target that should come out at level 1, we have a changer that should turn into a level 3, and then 2 copies of a card with pretty good synergy, but isn't a powerful card on its own. So you shouldn't count on level 2 being your big power spike. That should have happened on level 1 already. This is more like taking that big deep breath before you land the final blow, and I'll explain how it works. Shana Prideful might as well just be a vanilla 9500. The deck is built in a way that all of your characters are always going to be flame characters. So ideally, this will be a 9500 level 1 character with 2 soul attacks and also Super Encore from our Belle Payol. She may be short, but her booty is massive. No one's going to want to deal with this at level 1. In fact, 9500 is what Marjorie becomes after 1 pump. So she's like a pre-pumped Marjorie that's just always 9500 and also attacks for 2 soul. That being said, if you absolutely can't get one out at level 1, it's okay to hardcast this at level 2, it's just not as cool. Shana first time feeling this is our changer and also the cutest freaking thing I've ever seen. When she's put in play, you can look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck and put them back in the same order. It's not that useful, but I mean, I guess if you want to be really pro about it, it does tell you that if the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck are not climaxes, then you can swing in for 2 soul and you're guaranteed that attack. And then of course she changes, and that's the main use for her. You can pay 2, discard a card from your hands, and at the start of your climax phase, she becomes a level 3 Shana Great Vessel. Last up is Day Yuji Disappeared Shana, and this is definitely just a tech choice by me. This card doesn't have to be here at all. It can be taken out for a couple of backups, a couple of more events, or a level 3. But personally, I really like the power buff, so this is the card I use. Whenever this card attacks, you can give one of your other characters plus 2000 power. And she has Super Encore, so she can attack every single turn. I feel like this card does a great job cementing your field presence and making your opponent truly have to work around really big characters. But like I said before, if you didn't like this card could be very easily replaced with level 3, an event, or a backup. And finally, our level 3. This is my personal favorite level 3 Shana, especially because it has a changer and it works so well with the deck. When it's put in play, you heal 1 from the clock, and with its climax combo, you can clock yourself for 1 damage and pay 3 stock to attack 1 more time. This is a great card if it's your turn and you attack in and your opponent just cancels your damage, or your opponent's like 1 attack away from losing, because it gives you the last attack you need to not let your opponent get another turn. You do have to reverse the character you're fighting, which is one of the reasons I love the cards that give power boosts so much. There's really no way that you cannot reverse a character with this deck. You have Yuji Disappeared Shana to give you plus 2000. You've got your back row Hekade, who can give you plus 1500 and let you draw a card. You've got your Shana Growing Up in the City, who can give you 1000. Marjorie can give you 1500. Something is getting crushed, okay? Something is going down this turn. Now, because this comes out at level 2, you could technically go really hyper aggressive on your opponent and use it on level 2 to get your opponent to level 3 faster, and that's completely okay too. Especially since you have to clock yourself for 1 damage, it's a lot safer to do that at level 2 than it is to do it at level 3. But I find that her best use is just getting that extra attack when your opponent has 5 cards on the clock and you're just completely positive that your last attack was supposed to kill them and it didn't, and you're about to end your turn and give your opponent another turn, you restand, you take the 1 damage, and you attack for game. I want to point out that I tried to get 2 Shana and Yuji in here. If the deck weren't so hyper-focused on change and had a better level 2, I think I would probably cut this down to maybe 2 or 3 and try to get some Shana and Yuji in here, because it's just such a consistent level 3. I wish I could have had it. But oh well, you know, the rest of the deck fits together so perfectly, it's not like I need every single level to be perfect. Finally, we're running an event. So Shana has some really great event cards, so I knew I wanted to run at least one. Obviously, being the meme lord I am, I wanted to run Cooking Challenge, but I went with Alistor because this is supposed to be a semi-competitive deck. Because this is a change-focused deck, I'll show you a really neat trick you can do with this. The wording on the card says that you search for 2 characters and put them in your hand, and then discard a card from your hand. Because you can search for 2 flame characters and then discard 1 from your hand, you can search for your Shana first time viewing this, and also your Shana Great Vessel, and discard the Great Vessel to immediately get the change. It doesn't require a climax, it doesn't happen at the start of your next turn, you can literally just drop Alistor, get both cards, and then discard the card you need and immediately go into Great Vessel. Even if you don't use it for that purpose, just getting 2 characters into your hand is great, especially because of the whole character discard encore thing, and you could use it to get rid of a climax if you really need to. The fact that it removes itself from the game is just icing on the cake. These are the 2 climaxes I'm running 4 of each because they're part of our climax combos. If you're building this deck yourself, listen to me, you can take out 2 of each of these and put in 4 door triggers. As you can imagine, with the Super Encore floating around, the door triggers are very useful. The only reason I'm running this kind of setup is because I really want to consistently hit my effects, but honestly, if you're building this deck yourself, try to fit in some door triggers because the door triggers will save your life. So at the beginning of the game when you're redrawing your cards, there's nothing vital that you have to keep. If you have 2 level 0s and a Belle Payole in your hand, go ahead and be greedy and keep that Belle Payole and throw away the other 2 cards. By other cards, I mean, of course, keep the 0s and the Belle Payole and throw away the others. Unfortunately, you're a bit of a punching bag at level 0. It's okay, it happens. Your goal is to get out of level 0 with at least 4 stock, so if you can manage at least that, you're not doing too bad. Also, try to keep your opponent hovering around 4 or 5 in the clock. That'll make it so you can get hyper aggressive at level 1 and try and level them up past level 1, almost into level 2. Don't try and focus on getting Hekate in the back row. She's useless until level 2, so don't put her in the back row until level 2. She might as well be an attacker in the meantime. 2 Shana growing up in the city is much more useful than a Shana growing up in the city and a Hekate. And of course, if you happen to get a Felis in your hand, drop it, get yourself 1 Belle Payole, 1 Marjorie, and a bunch of Shana in swimsuits. At level 1, we should start popping off. You should be looking for your opponent's strongest character and taking it out every single chance you get. The upside of the strategy we're using is your opponent shouldn't get to have a powerful character on the field. Play 1 Belle and 1 Marjorie. You really shouldn't need more than 1 Marjorie. And if you have at least 5 stock, just pay 1 for Marjorie's effect every turn and rest Belle, just to make absolutely sure your opponent doesn't play a backup and screw you over. The only time I would say maybe don't do it is if you're already higher than your opponent by like 4,000, which is probably never going to happen. So just pay 1, get the 3,000 boost, and make it so your opponent's field stays as empty as possible. The counter to this is if your opponent pulls out a really cheesy encore strategy. That can be very difficult to deal with, but just do your best. Don't forget that pushing your opponent into discarding cards for encore isn't a terrible thing because you are emptying out their hand. It just means that their field can endure a bit better than most others. Your overall strategy, though, should be Shana in swimsuits. If you have 1 Belle Payole and 1 Marjorie, then everything else should be dedicated to trying to get to a Shana in swimsuits and pulling off its change. Listen to me, this is very important. Do not forget that Shana in swimsuits changes from the deck, not the discard pile. If you use a card that lets you discard and the card you choose to discard is Shana Prideful, it does not mean that you can change. Luckily, we're running 4 of the Pridefuls in the deck, so it should be pretty easy to get one to change into. While the effect is expensive, if you do happen to get 6 stock collected together and you have 2 Shana in swimsuits on the field, go ahead, be nuts, and change into both. Okay, so like I said before, you can't rely on this deck to win you the game at level 2. Keep up the pressure with your prideful Shanas and try and get that combo going that will get you into Great Vessel. Don't forget, if you get an Alistair in your hand at any point in the game and you can justify keeping it, keep it and then drop the base at level 2. I play Alistair, search for First Time Feeling Shana, search for Great Vessel Shana, discard Great Vessel Shana. If you can manage to get a Day Yuji disappeared in your hands, then you can drop it if you have 3 or 4 stock lying around. But don't focus on it too hard. Day Yuji disappeared is just a tech card, it's not the main strategy of the deck. Also, if you manage to get this far without getting a Belle Paole in play, get it in play. It's necessary. It will keep your level 3 Shana alive, it will keep your level 2 Shana alive while you're trying to change. It's why the deck holds together so well. At level 3, go nuts with your Great Vessel. One interesting interaction that I was going to explain and then I forgot about is that level 3 Shana heals you when she comes into play. That means if you drop Shana and heal, that is the same turn that you can use her restand effect without killing yourself. Take advantage of it. That's pretty much just canceling out the healing effect, and the restand effect is much more powerful. If you weren't able to get a change off, don't forget about Alistair. You can use it to just search for 2 Great Vessel Shanas, drop them both into play, and that's just 4 stock for 2 heals and the potential for 2 restands. If your opponent attacks into you, you should have no problems here. You should have a Belle Paole on the field by now. Just use your Belle Paole to keep them alive, and try to keep a 3rd Shana that also has Super Encore in the 3rd slot, or keep the 3rd slot open so you can drop a Marjorie that'll give them plus 1500 if you really need to reverse something. And that's it for the deck. I do hope you enjoyed. It's not as gimmicky and fun as my other decks, but this is a more serious Shana build. Although keep in mind, I did throw a couple of Kudou twists on it, so if you're looking for a really competitive Shana build, this might not be the build for you, but you might want to try it out because it could surprise you. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget that this deck will be featured in a Card Games and Chill if we ever get a Card Games and Chill started, alongside Shana Waifu and a Villain Rush. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Hey you, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you left me a like. They help the channel grow and let me know that you want more of this kind of content in the future. The channel is currently being supported by these lovely folks on Patreon. You guys rock! If you have any thoughts on the video, of course leave them in the comment section below, along with suggestions on what I should do next. But also answer this question to prove that you made it to the end of the video, if you feel like it. And finally, if you found this video by accident, then subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudou news. You can also hit the notification bell. Ringing the little bell will let you know when I upload a new video. See you next time!